So today we're going to talk about forecasting that's available in manufacturing clouds. So I'm going to kind of go over the different types of options. So there's three different types of forecasting options that are available. So we're going to kind of quickly talk over those, what they do, what the difference is between them, and then I'll go into a demo in my demo org. So the first one that we have is account forecasting. So that is, kind of really exactly how it sounds, right? It's forecasting specifically on the account record itself. So this allows you guys to set up targets, so kind of sales goals for specific accounts. And you can not only configure them by the account, but also by the product. So we want $10,000 for this account, and we want that split over these three products, something kind of along those lines. When you generate those forecasts, this is going to utilize opportunities, sales orders, and sales agreements if you guys ever decide to utilize sales agreements. And that's kind of it. That's how we're getting our actuals. And like I said, it focuses on product revenue. We can also set it up for quantity for a specific account over a set period of time. And then here's account forecasting. So as you can see kind of over here on the right, when you're setting up an account forecast on an actual account record itself, what the system's going to allow you to do is input your account growth and your market growth percent for that account. And it's going to automatically generate that forecast for you. So it's going to be tailored to each specific account. And it's going to utilize your sales order or sales agreements history data. So kind of from the previous year, how did this account do? We want to grow this account by 10%. And then the system will take care of it for you. So it's a quick way to generate forecasts for specific accounts. And then it's going to spread that out again over the products that are associated kind of with open opportunities, open orders, et cetera. And you can quickly update these from each specific account. You can do a mass update. You can import with CSVs, and I'll kind of show you what that looks like. So pretty standard, simplistic, I would say, account forecasting. The next tier to that is advanced account forecasting. So with advanced forecasting, it's going to actually allow you to forecast with different dimensions. So now instead of just saying, I want to create a forecast by the account and the product, now I want to forecast by maybe a region or a division or a business unit. Any kind of custom dimension that you guys are looking to forecast by, you can set that up. So it's not forcing you to set it up only at the account level. You can if you wanted to, but if you don't want to, if you want it to be a little bit more tailor-made, you can utilize advanced account forecasting. The benefit here is that you can also configure different forecasts by dimension. So for example, if the commercial division, the way that we are calculating that forecast or generating that forecast is different than maybe the industrial division, you can have two different forecast types that support both of those processes. So it does give you some more customization capabilities, whereas again, account forecasting, just the account forecasting itself, is pretty cut and dry on what it can do. Here, you're not restricted to just opportunity, order, sales agreement data. If there are other kind of data elements that you wanted to pull in to help you get your actuals, kind of show what your actuals are, you can pull in some custom objects. This also allows for adjustments and kind of standardizing how we're doing those forecast adjustments. So what we can do, and you can kind of see it over here in the screenshot a little bit, we have a regional manager making an adjustment to the forecasted quantity for what looks like September. You can set the parameters by forecast type, right? So again, maybe commercial has 3 days after the start of a period to input their adjustments. And then industrial has 4 days. So you can kind of tailor it based on the forecast that you're setting up, but essentially setting the parameters of after this period starts or before this period ends, this is when we're going to allow adjustments, and we're only going to allow them for X amount of days. And then you can go one step further and put approval processes in. So if you're going to allow specific users to make those adjustments, and then maybe you want that adjustment to be reviewed and approved before it's committed, we can put approval process in as well, just to make sure that we understand what adjustments are being made. And the last one is account manager targets. So in a way, it is kind of a forecast, but what this is actually going to do is it's going to allow you to say, okay, as a company, we have this sales goal for the entire year, and now we're going to distribute that among the regional managers. So each regional manager is going to have a cut of that they're responsible for. that manager can then go in and say, okay, if my cut is 1.5 million and I have 5 members on my team, split that 1.5 million across my team. And then from there, out of that, the split that we've done, now split that by specific accounts. I'll walk you guys through that as well. But again, it's going to allow you to kind of take those targets, divvy them out to the sales managers, and then allow them to distribute to their team, whether it's 10% of that goes to this account, 5% goes for this set of products. However, you guys choose to set up those goals. It really kind of is going to allow you guys to set up these targets for the sales managers to start to work towards. Now, I will say out of these three, account manager targets would work well with either or, because it is a little different in how it does forecasting. It's more of an assistance to the goal, right? Not so much forecasting itself. So it can work well with account forecasting or advanced account forecasting. And as you can see here, kind of like I mentioned, it is going to allow you to take that overall target value for the sales team, really, and then split it out across the team members, whether it's equally, right? So we have 3 sales reps that maybe it's 25, 25, 50, maybe it's 10, 10, 80, however the sales manager wants to split that out among the team, they're able to do that. Okay. So with advanced account forecasting, you do get analytics out of the box. So the dashboards that you're going to have access to are the forecast analysis, the product performance, the account insight, the account health. So those are kind of the standard out of the box dashboards. And then as you guys utilize forecasting and load data in, there is a predictive kind of capability with the statistical order forecasting. So what it's going to do is it's going to find trends across the company in your order quantity and revenue, and it's going to kind of help predict where forecasting should be. So it's really going to kind of pull those trends in and pull that predictive piece in there to say, based on what we're seeing, kind of here's your peaks, here's your valleys from an ordering trend perspective. So here's how the forecast should adjust over time. So just kind of quickly, the forecasting analysis dashboard is really going to help you answer the questions: how are my products performing against forecast and the adjusted? So if there's any adjustments that are made, you'll be able to see those. What's the accuracy of my forecast? Which product or account has the highest variance? So I know one of the concerns that you guys have is sometimes there is a jump in forecast, right? And can't, or maybe there's a drop in the actuals and we can't see, was it a specific product? Was it a specific account? This is going to actually show you, okay, this account or this product had the highest variance, whether it's a positive or negative variance in this month based on the revenue compared to what was forecasted. And then you can see your forecast variance for the current month as a whole. Product performance is going to allow you to dig down into the specific products. So we kind of set this up however you guys see fit. It can be at the actual product level, or it can be at a product family or product category. So really kind of up to you on which level that you guys want to configure that. But it's going to help you to see how they're performing. The revenue by product for a select period, which of your products are top performing, which products may need attention, and then when have you had the highest variance in your forecasts, whether it's from a quantity forecast or revenue. And you don't have to do both. You could do one or the other, but for the most part right now, I'm just kind of focusing on quantity or revenue. And then the account insights, if you do set up any forecasting for a specific customer account, the account insights is going to allow you to do something very similar to the product insights. So how are your forecasts performing for each account? Which account is top performing? Of that top performing account, which products were top performing? Total revenue. And then what's the forecasted quantity revenue for any custom dimensions that you guys have, right? So if you set it up by business unit, if you set it up by region, any of those dimensions, you'll be able to pull in and kind of slice and dice and see how the forecast to actuals we're doing. And then account health is a little similar, but kind of a little bit more high level than the account insights. So just which accounts need attention. So kind of based on revenue, which accounts maybe aren't bringing in a lot of revenue. We might want to shift gears and focus on those. And then just how is the account performing against your forecast? And then what's the total forecasted revenue or total forecasted quantity for a selected time period. Okay. Now, we did kind of talk about this a little bit, but just for for showing perspective, advanced account forecasting versus account forecasting, just to kind of highlight the differences. So really the biggest differences between these two, account forecasting, you set one and that applies to the entire business. Advanced, you can be a little bit more custom in how you're setting that up and have different processes or even different calculations based on, what your dimensions end up being. Complex calculations. So account forecasting, really only using the opportunity sales agreements and orders data. But on the advanced account forecasting side, you can add custom calculations into the business process. So think average product cost, think product margin. You can build that calculation into the advanced forecasting process. And again, it can be different based on the business unit if needed. Adding forecasted dimensions, again, adding the region, adding the territory. You can do that with advanced accounts, but with the account forecasting, you cannot. Customizing how it's processed. So again, you can have multiple forecasts that process all the same, or you can have multiple forecasts that are all processed differently. An advanced account will support that versus the standard account forecasting. It's kind of, again, one all be all. And then specifying which measures are available for adjustments. So that adjustment period that we talked about, you actually have some flexibility in which elements of the forecast the team can and cannot update. You can set that with the advanced account forecasting. On the account forecasting side, though, it's standard. You don't have any flexibility in choosing which fields they can and can't edit. Okay, so kind of within our demo org here, the setup for your advanced account forecasting is actually done on this kind of within setup. So I'm not going to go over the actual setup of the forecasting behind the scenes, but once the forecast or multiple forecasts are configured and they've been generated, they're now accessible in what's called the advanced account forecast set use object, which is a mouthful, I realize. But that's this object right here. So I've gone ahead and already generated an account forecasting for the Mountain Majesty Outfitters. So like I said, this forecast has been configured at the account level. And here dimensions we're using for grouping our forecasts are the account region and then the product itself. Even though this record is associated with a specific account, like I said, the forecasting can be configured maybe only at the region level, right? So our context here is not an account, our context is a region or a division or a product. You guys do have the ability to kind of customize this context. Now here, we have a lot of products. We actually have 3 pages. So I'm going to filter this so that we're only really looking at 2 products. So here we have the 4-slide harness. And what I wanted to point out here are the different measures that you guys have. So first we have the forecasted quantity and the forecasted revenue. These metrics are calculated based on your business rules. So for this forecast, we've taken ordered quantity and applied 10% to the ordered quantity. And that's what's going to drive the forecasted amounts. But you can customize that however you see fit. So you can calculate that by current orders, and based on the current order or current opportunities that are in the pipeline, we apply a percentage, or even using previous year's data. You can pull that data in and say, okay, based on last year's sales quantity at this time, apply 20% to that. And you can see that's kind of spread out over this period. So it looks like we're going all the way into September of 2025. And so we can see we've got our forecasted quantity and our forecasted revenue here. Then we have ordered quantity and revenue. So this is going to pull in our actual sales order data for this region and for this specific product. So as you can see what looks like, I believe there might be, so it doesn't look like we have any orders right now that are open for this specific product. But lastly, we have opportunity quantity and revenue. And we do have an opportunity that is set to close in April 2024. That's the projected close date. So the quantity is $450 and the revenue is $8,100. And so then we're kind of aggregating that to see, kind of where are we at as of right now. But we can see our forecasted quantity for the month is 200. So this would exceed it. And the same with the revenue, it's 4,000. We have 8,100. So if this were to close, we would exceed what our forecasted goal was for April. So kind of on the adjustment periods, those can also be set, like I mentioned, to allow only specific groups of users the ability to make those adjustments. With this specific forecast here, I'm not able to make the adjustments because we're outside of the adjustment period. But once we set the fields and we are within the adjustment period, this automatically becomes available for the team to make those adjustments. They would come in, they would kind of scroll over to the applicable period, they would make their adjustments, and in the fields that you've delegated can be updated, and then we would save those records.
Do they have to forecast down to that level? I mean, so in our business, we have, it could be let's use a recip blade. I got a 6-inch recip blade that could potentially be a 14 tooth, 18 tooth, 9-inch blade, or 12-inch blade. It could be all those different things, but the salesperson doesn't necessarily know this is the amount of this exact blade I'm going to be selling. They might know I'm going to be selling $50,000 this month, but they don't know necessarily down to this level to say I'm selling the 4-slide harness. I do know I'm going to be selling stuff, but I don't know down to that level. I'm thinking more of a group. Would they be able to do something more like that?
Yeah, essentially what you would do is when you set up your dimensions, let's say, for this example, it's just Northeast, right? We just know Northeast needs to sell $96,000 in this year. Then the quantity wouldn't show, it would just be revenue, and this product column would not be here. So yeah, you would just remove this as the dimension.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other
Kyley,
questions?
To follow on to that,
Yeah.
what about like product categories? Like we want, I think this is maybe what Curtis was alluding to, is we have bandsaws and power tools, and then under power tools we have recips and hole saws, and so we might want to slice it and dice it at a few different levels of that.
Yeah, you can set it by, again, kind of the division, and then by the product category. So here we have the actual product, but when you set up your forecast, you can set it up so that it is the high level kind of product category. And as long as all of your products are tied to that category, then the numbers will fill themselves in as orders are placed.
Okay, are there multiple levels there, or should there just be one category level and then products?
That's up to you guys. So again, with the advanced forecast, you're going to have that flexibility to customize your dimensions. So if you want division, high level category, and then maybe a second level category, and we're generating all of our numbers based on the second level and then kind of grouping upstream, then yeah, you could certainly set it up that way.
Okay.
And then Kyley, is there a way to capture 2 forecasts for the same information in here? And what I'm looking at is we do a forecast sometime later this fall. We'll do a forecast for the 2025 year, and that's what we'll budget based on, and we compare to that regularly. But each month, for Curtis's purposes and production planning, they reforecast each month, appropriately so that we can plan our production requirements around those different forecasts as well. Is there a way to capture both and compare to both in here?
Yeah, so that's kind of where we were talking about with this slide, the multiple forecasts. So what you would essentially do is you would set up one for production, and you would kind of set up your business criteria, when it's recalculated, when values roll over, all of that logic gets set up for your production. And maybe you allow adjustments, right? But then for your revenue that we're setting and we're kind of marching to that, we're not making adjustments, you would set that up as your second forecast. And that's where you would say, okay, we don't want this to recalculate month to month or quarter to quarter. So you do have that flexibility by setting up the multiple forecasts. And then when you run your analytics, you're running analytics kind of on the different forecast sets. So once we get over to the reporting, which I'm going to show you here in a second, for this, there's only one. But if you had 2, you'd be able to say, okay, show me forecast to actual performance for the production set, right? So based on how we forecasted and what our actual numbers look like, what's the accuracy percent? And then now let me hop over to my revenue based. How has that one been performing?
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good question.
And Kyley, did I catch that for the advanced forecast, we can add custom objects to where we're pulling revenue from?
Yep.
Excellent.
Yeah. Yeah, because I know for you guys, your sales order data is in a custom object. So this would work fine. You would just have to update kind of the back end setup to pull from there versus the out of the box orders. So yeah, you could definitely do that.
Excellent.
Okay. All right, so now I'm going to walk through analytics pretty quickly for you guys. So we're gonna go browse. Okay, so I'm going to start first with our forecast analysis dashboard. So here we're looking at just the current forecast set that's been configured. So here we're looking at our actuals versus forecast kind of across from, let's see, here's from period 1 of 2024, kind of down through this year. Here's where we're going to have our dimensions. So right now we're looking at it from an account perspective, but if we have products set up, we can filter this by product, and then we could drill down into the products if needed. So for you guys, with your dimensions, you could have, you know, maybe our high level product category, and then from there, we're drilling down into maybe the second level product category if we wanted to. So you have some flexibility here. And then we can toggle whether we're looking at this monthly, quarterly, or maybe cumulative by month. So there's a couple of different views that you guys have here. And in addition to the actual versus forecast, you're going to have your accuracy, right? So how accurate from period to period was my forecast? So your mean absolute percentage error, and it looks like this one was 78.6%, which is probably not great. And then we can jump between quantity and revenue. So a couple of different ways that you can kind of slice and dice this data. And then over here, we'll have, here's our forecasted revenue, and then here's what the actual revenue is. And then here's our variance. So right now, 17.8 million over what the actual forecasted revenue was. And then you do have some additional filters at the top if you would like to utilize those. Now we're kind of drilling down a little bit further into the accuracy. So here we're going by account. So these are just kind of all the accounts that are set up in the system. We can go from an account or parent account. So when we think of like your buying groups, for example, if there is any type of forecasting that's done from that perspective, if you set up the parent-child hierarchy, you can look at the overall kind of parent umbrella and how they're doing, or drill down into individual accounts. And then again, we just have the products over here. So we can product family, product category is what we have here, but we can pull in additional criteria for your products so that you guys can slice and dice this data. And then down below, just some details. So here's the account, here's that product from the time period that forecast was set up. Here's what the forecast revenue and forecast quantity were. So just giving a little bit more context to some of the numbers up above. Again, if you have multiple forecasts, right? So we've got the production versus maybe revenue, you'd be able to toggle between those two and look at this view here. And then as you guys start building more historical data, you'd be able to compare previous year to current year and see what the variance is. So kind of seeing how we're doing year over year. But for this org, I don't have a lot of historical data, so I'm not able to get the variance. But with the history tab, you would be able to see that. Popping over to the account insights. So kind of like I mentioned, this is just giving you a high level overview of how accounts are performing. So this is accounts overall. If you wanted to drill down into specific accounts, you certainly could. So we could drill down into our Mountain Majesty, and we can see our actuals versus forecast, and then kind of how the revenue is doing over time. We can also look at it from quantity or from a quantity perspective as well versus revenue. And then here we can see kind of what our attainment is, and we're 113% over what our revenue was, which is awesome. And then a few more metrics down here, right? So revenue over time based on the different dimensions. So here I can look at product, and then I can drill down even further. But over here, I can leave this as maybe the Mountain Majesty account. So we can kind of compare revenue for the different dimensions. down below, actual versus forecast based on the product category or the family. And then again, just some more details on what your forecasted to actuals are if you wanted to see some of the detailed numbers that make up the reports above. Okay. Account health is, again, similar to the account insights, looking at performance against forecast, revenue over time. For this one, you can see with this dotted purple line, this is actually kind of trending, right? So we're kind of looking at what we're thinking the cumulative forecasted revenue will be. We can do that on a month-to-month basis. We can do that on a quarter-to-quarter basis. And then we're comparing the actual revenue to the forecast. And then we can customize the period too. So right now we're looking at the current year, but if you wanted to drill down to very specific dates, so if we wanted to get more granular, you certainly could. And then we've got our account details below. And then lastly, product performance. So similar to your account performance, this one's going to be focused primarily on the product. So revenue demand. So for this particular product, it looks like there's 1.4 million. So we can see kind of which products are kind of the highest selling. We can group that by product family as well. So we don't have a product families really set up, which is why this is not showing here. But for you guys with the different kind of your major and your minor categories, you could have what's the major category, and then let's drill down even further into that minor category and see how the sales are performing. Again, quantity versus revenue. So we can look at the two different versions of these metrics, and then below our variance. So what's our forecasted quantity? What's the actual quantity? And then what's our actuals versus the forecasted quantity over specific time periods. So here we have monthly, quarterly, and then cumulative. And then similar to the account, we've got the details below. So based on this family and this product, here are the accounts that there's a forecast for, and what is that forecasted revenue, quantity, and then the actuals. So those are the different dashboards. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and I'm going to take you into account manager targets. Like I mentioned, this functionality is going to allow for your regional directors to take their sales goals for revenue and or quantity and distribute that down to their teams. So first, we're going to look at the regional directors view. So here's all of our targets that we have set up, but I'm making myself a regional director. And so from this view, you can see when I open this, the team underneath me is automatically displayed, which gives me the ability to distribute the revenue across this team. So here I have a $3.5 million target. I've distributed that to 3 sales members in a 25, 25, 50% split. So for Sam Chloe, for example, his 25% split means that he is responsible for $875,000 of my team's $3.5 million goal. You can further split this. Like I said, if there's maybe specific accounts or specific products that need to be targeted, you can split this further by distributing it at another level. So here, of his $875,000, 10% of that needs to be for Mountain Majesty Outfitters, which the system automatically calculates at $87,000. Now I could bump that, and the system will automatically calculate that for me. So we don't have to worry about doing the math, or we can just type in the target currency, right? So we could say, okay, well, maybe only 20,000 of that is what he's responsible for. And you can see it automatically calculated that target percentage. So just another way to set goals based on the team's goal for your specific sales reps. And then we can distribute that by period even further. So of that $87,000, this is how it's split evenly across the period, but we could change this and say, we know based on sales history that this is actually probably going to be a higher month. And so we can just make those adjustments here. So you do have the ability to further customize this as needed, but then the system does kind of evenly split it to help out. If we wanted to add a product, you can see here, this is their 4-slide harness, and we've got our target currency value here based on a 15% target. So now we've taken his 25% and we've split that up to say, okay, 10% of that needs to be for this account and 15% needs to be this product. Doesn't matter what the account is, but 15% of your goal needs to be for this product. So again, you guys could set this up at a product category level if needed. But I think the account piece could be helpful if we're trying to drive sales for specific customers. So with account manager targets, this isn't something that has to be necessarily managed on a month by month basis. This is something that if you, especially if there's not a lot of changes, you can set it at the beginning of the year or even the end of the previous year, and it's active the start of the following year. And then you kind of just let it run its course throughout the year. The idea is that the individual sales rep, right, would not be in here managing this. It would be their manager. So maybe it's kind of your regional or your division manager would say, hey, I've been given this target for my division, so I'm going to distribute this across the team. It can be a very quick, just kind of propagate out evenly. So if I've got 4 members, go 20, 20, 20, or 25, 25, 25 across the board. It could be that simple. I can look into the importing process, but the actual management from month to month should be very minimal once it's set up. Managers could go into, so we could kind of start a little bit higher up and from, let's say, the sales director perspective, set it up for the division leaders. Division leaders come in. They, if I'm a division leader, I see that I've got this target. This is what it is. My team's already here. I'm just going to come in and say, cool, propagate. So push that down to the rest of the team. Looks great. Maybe I come in and say, yo, Sam, you need something on this account. And then I just leave it as it is. And then it'll run its course. And I'm going to pop in as our sales rep, Sam, and kind of show you what the day-to-day sales rep's perspective would look like too.
I see a lot of value in this. And I see a lot of, I see a lot of things that like Kurt's doing and that others inside the building are doing, that this would help tremendously in analysis and seeing, where we're at, what our forecast error actually looks like, and take everything out of Excel and put it to the spot where we're already recording our opportunities, where we're already recording some of these things to help sales connect the dots on, hey, I missed my forecast and here are the specific reasons why, not, oh, we just didn't do as good. We're going to do better next time.
Right. Now, I will say you can have, so the advanced account forecast set that we looked at, this record, you can have this without the account manager targets. So all of those dashboards that we were looking at is going to be based on this setup. What this is going to help you do is this is going to help give the teams give them a little bit more, I guess, accountability, right? So instead of it's just, oh, we know as a company that we want to make $10 million this year, it's saying, okay, Sam, you're responsible for 800,000 of that 10 million. So it's setting those goals for the team members to help drive what this overall forecast is. So you don't have to have this. It's supplementary, but I do agree there is value in showing the sales team kind of here's where you help us meet that overall goal.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're doing none of this is foreign to us. We're doing all of these things
right
today.
We're doing them in 6 places.
We're doing them in 6 places in 46 different Excel sheets, getting data from everywhere to pull it together. I mean, it's certainly, yes, but what it's my fear with it is that it's taking work that's done outside of the sales organization and putting it into work that needs to be done inside the sales organization. Completely appropriate, just expecting pushback.
I think, again, there's ways that we could kind of work through some of that. Like I said, this isn't, if you're the sales rep, right? So kind of Sam here, Sam should never be in here doing any of this. Sam's manager, which would be me, is the one that's going to set this up. And maybe I have a window of time frame with which I set that up. And once I've set it up, I just don't really need to kind of come back in here unless there is a big change, right? Staff changes, or as you were saying, we know we're going to get a big account, so we want to kind of factor that in. My boss could come in here and set this up for my team and distribute it down that way. So there's ways I think that we could look at alleviating that admin overhead so that they have visibility, but they're not bogged down by the management of this. Because again, once it's set, the numbers just feed themselves. And I'll show you. Let me go ahead and log in as Sam. And I will show you what those dashboards would look like.
And
so
while
log.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
That came up faster
Yeah.
than I thought. I was going to say, while you were doing that, some of the pushback that I'm referring to, we have some sales division leads in our organization that have not embraced Salesforce yet.
Yeah.
In fact, they've pushed back on Salesforce. So it's not necessarily Sam in this instance that I'm talking about, but it's closer to like you in this example, Kyley.
Understood.
That we would get that pushback from. So that's again just to add some context around that.
And what I like about this is I mean, you might force them to get more involved with it. I mean, to what you're saying, Matt, if this also becomes your forecasting tool, this is where, because you're right, we do a set of spreadsheets that goes to one person for accounting purposes for regional. We do another one for me that goes to, then they have to do Salesforce as well. If we could get this into one spot, it sure sounds like it's a win.
I've had some conversations with different parts of the sales team where there's some appetite out there for doing something like this. Some of them have already kind of looked at opportunities and said, "Hey, can we use those for, some of the spreadsheets?" So, yeah,
and
we'll
that's
definitely get
not
some pushback,
uncommon.
but there's definitely some appetite too.
That's not uncommon across, especially the manufacturing industry, right? From a user's perspective, it's why am I putting some data here if I'm also entering that data in other places, or I'm having to, still jump between multiple systems. So if I'm jumping between multiple systems, don't introduce anything new to me. I'm not interested in it. So yes, right. I do think, one, understanding, what the pushback is to see if there's tweaks that can be made to help drive adoption, but two, pushing back and saying at this point, if we do get this in here, what's going to take you more time setting down and getting this set up and then kind of setting and forgetting, or managing those spreadsheets from month to month, right? So we'd have to make sure it's built in a way to show them that they're actually gaining time with these adjustments and that there is more accuracy versus the spreadsheet process that they're doing today. So it's, like I said, it's just showing, hey, it sucks, but here's the value that you're getting. And we're giving you an hour back out of your week at the start of every month that you're not having to worry about spreadsheets.
Yep, makes sense.
But definitely not an uncommon problem for sure. But so as we can see here, I've logged in as Sam. And so with the analytics for the account manager targets, you can embed on the sales rep's homepage their targets. So as soon as they log in, it's kind of in their face how they're doing. So we can see that his target was at $875,000. I don't have any orders that are open right now, so there's no revenue and there's no attainment. But as those orders come in for those accounts or that product, if those have been set, we'll be able to see the target revenue to actual, so they can see real time how they're doing, and then what their attainment percentage is. So they can see, am I doing really, really well? Am I not doing well at all? And then we can kind of come down here and take a look at the target attainment, the revenue, target revenue. So this one's cumulative. We can look at it month over month. We can do a projection, and we can turn on previous years, which not a whole lot of data on this one because, again, Sam doesn't have any revenue. So I can show it from the admin perspective too, but you can compare previous years. So maybe Sam wants to see, well, how am I doing this May compared to last May? And then the projection is going to show you kind of forecasted, right? So based on what we've done so far, what am I forecasted to do based on what's open in the system? And then you can give them, again, here's our year-over-year targets. And then if there's any new targets that have been set up, so these are just recently set up. So it lets Sam know, hey, heads up, you just had a new target set up. And then let's say that I took his Mountain Majesty Outfitters from 10% to 45% of his overall 875,000, it'll highlight down here. So again, kind of that management perspective, set it, forget it. But if there are changes, there's ways to communicate that to the sales team so that they know, hey, now you have a new sales target that you just need to work towards. And then what's our attainment towards that? And then really quick, I will show you this view. So this is Sam's target. So as you can see here, there's no assignment because there's no team. And then there's, again, once there's some revenue data that's in here, there is a dashboard, again, that can kind of show how am I doing towards my goals. But here is where we'd be able to see those individual attainments. So we don't have an account, we just have the product. This is my target value for that specific product. And here's that account. And then here's the currency value for that account. So I need to make sure as Sam, I do $87,000 for this account. So as those accounts are distributed, or as the account and products are distributed, all of that would show here. Otherwise, it's just standard period to period. Here's what your goal is. And you would see that on this homepage, you would see that in the month over month, what the goal is. So right now it's just 73,000 pretty much, that's even. So if we were to break that up across the different months so that one month is higher and some others are lower, you'd see that variation here. Okay. So I'm gonna log out. And then if I go home on this one, so yeah, here's one, obviously, because as an admin, I see everything. So I just kind of wanted to show this month over month. Here's our projections in this purple line. And then here's our previous year comparison. So once the data fills in, this is kind of what that would look like.
So this is probably a dumb question, but there's a way to then take all this data and dump it into Excel or something that I could then turn it into a usable, correct?
Yep. It may be separate reports that you would then have to join on the Excel side, because obviously with the analytics that we're joining everything in the data set to render out.
Right.
So there's multiple data sets, but we could certainly dump, and I'd be able to see which data sets make up each of these metrics, and then you could export those at any time. But yeah, anything that's reportable can be exported if needed.
Perfect. Okay.
Last thing is going to be the account forecasting itself. So looking at our Mountain Majesty account, we've configured the account forecasting to give us 10% growth on this specific account from the previous year, and then a 5% growth in the market for the products. So this took that percentage, looked at last year's orders, our opportunities, sales agreements, and then the data for this year to generate our forecast for products that are currently associated kind of via an opportunity or an order. You can add products as needed if there is not a product on this specific forecast. And anytime you add a new product, it will recalculate the entire forecast. So if I were to come here and let's say the 6-person tent, I were to add that in, it's going to go ahead and recalculate, and I'll get a notification in my email once this has been recalculated. Now there's a lot of products here, so we can filter those products as needed. We can also filter by time because there's a lot of data that's here. We can recalculate this at any time. So if you think that the numbers could be potentially off, maybe there was a very large order that came in that's not reflecting here, we could recalculate that at any time. You can change our growth. So again, here we had 10%. If I wanted to say maybe this is actually 12 or 13%, we could change that value and then we could hit apply. Right now it's recalculating, which is why apply is grayed out, but you would hit apply and then it would go through and recalculate based on this 13% account growth. And then you can also perform a mass update. So here we could say all products, we want to increase the forecasted quantity by 5%. We could enter an adjustment and then save. And then that would also recalculate. Yeah, this can be restricted. It can be locked down. I'm an admin, so I'd be able to do this, but with this, you guys would lock this down. This is similar to the advanced account forecasting. I know we couldn't see it on the advanced account forecasting, but you do have that ability where you can say, take this forecast and increase the quantity for these products or this region, increase everything by 2% or 3%. And then here's my adjustment note. You'll have that mass update capability on the advanced forecasting side too. This is just showing you kind of what this one looks like on the account side. But like I said, with this one, as you can see, these are the metrics that we have, and this is kind of what you're limited to. So we've got our quantity metrics, and then we also have the revenue metrics here. So it's really limited to quantity revenue. So if you wanted to add something like can you give me the average cost of the product or what our profit margin is for this account or this region or this product. That's not something you're able to do with account forecasting. It is something you are able to do with advanced account forecasting. So those are kind of some of the bigger differences. The data displays very similarly, but how we're calculating that data and slicing and dicing it is very different. And that is forecasting. I tried to kind of get through this piece fairly quickly, but that's pretty much it. So that concludes the demo of forecasting within Manufacturing Cloud. Thanks for your time.